Good morning. It is December 25th, 2018. That is Christmas Day. Um, all right, change of plans. I'm going to go ahead and I think take just today off. I've gotten some Christmas money. I can take tomorrow and today off, I'm pretty sure. Of course, my worry is that I won't want to go back on the 27th, but I think I can take a couple of days off here. Christmas was all right. I mean, nothing to it at all. My mom and my sister's family all came over for a bit on Sunday, and I saw everyone after my drive. Um, and my sister and her family went over to my dad's last night for Christmas Eve, and I didn't go. I haven't spoken to my dad in about a year. Until yesterday, he called. It was very transactional, informational. No, I'm not coming. Okay, bye. That's about it. Not a lot I want to get into on that just today, other than I'm good with it. It's not easy, but I'm good with it. Okay, so Christmas Day. I'm making this up off the top of my head, but I just want to talk a little bit about the history of the holiday. And some things I've been picking up. I don't have any notes. I'm not going to absolutely stand by every sentence that I say here. It's off the top. It's memory. But the basic gist of it is that we don't know why we celebrate Christmas when we celebrate Christmas. Christmas doesn't appear in the Bible. It's not a thing that is theologically important. Almost none of the early Christians cared at all about the birth of Jesus. And theologically speaking, most of them would have considered the actual birth the time of his baptism. Depending on the different groups and whatnot. We first start seeing celebrations of Christmas in the second century AD, certainly by the third, by the 200s. I was always taught or learned that it was probably Christmas was probably appropriated from a couple of different Roman pagan holidays. One that's mentioned a lot is Natalis Solis Invicti, the birthday of the unconquerable sun, which I believe was Mithra, is the one they're being referred to on this. And Mithraism was a monotheism and that a lot of people were running to in the church, or I'm sorry, in the empire at that time. And one of the podcasts I listened to pointed out something that I'd never heard or never occurred to me. We're not really sure which came first, Christmas or Natalis Solis Invicti. The old story was that the early Christians took a holiday that was known and celebrated, and in their attempts to get converts, they added this winter holiday in. Winter holidays have always been popular, right around the solstice or the shortest day of the year, longest night. Um, that makes more sense to me, but it's also possible, because we don't know the timeline that great, that Natalis Solis Invicti might have actually borrowed some, at least, from Christmas, or the monotheism of Judeo-Christianity. As I said, there were a few other monotheistic religions, so that's a little muddled. We get to what we consider our Christmas holidays, and what we find is a lot of northern pagan influence. The early Anglo-Saxons that went to England were a Germanic tribe. The Germans, of course, were descendants of Germanic tribes, and even the Scandinavian countries. They speak about the same time that the Anglo-Saxons are in England. We call that Old English or just Anglo-Saxon. About that time in the Scandinavian areas, they are speaking many dialects of what's called Old Norse. But Old Norse is just a branch off the Germanic languages. You got to go a little bit further back in time before they're about the same language, but they're very closely related. And of course, in English, a lot of Scandinavian countries came in. Denmark and Swedish, and I think even some Norse Vikings. They played all over Europe. It's certainly a big impact on the English language and our own customs. But just like we suspect happened in the Roman world, we know for sure that this happened here in Europe, that the Christians took the holidays and celebrations that the Northern Europeans were doing with their paganism, worship of Woden or Odin, Thor, all those guys you remember from the Marvel comics. Well, from there we get things like the Yule log, the Christmas tree itself, etc., etc. All that symbolism had been used prior and was appropriated as okay by the church. Which brings me to the last point that I thought just really kind of blew my mind. A little thing that I learned this year is, with all of this history in mind, Christ may or may not really have much of anything to do with Christmas. It was, up until very recently, just a commercial holiday. It was from the times of Romans up through Europe and the northern influences there. It was always a time of celebration, of gift giving, and of community, but not necessarily a heavily religious one. And remember, Christmas is not a big religious holiday, even in Christianity. And there are some out there who think that the meaning of the season and taking the commercialism out of Christmas, reclaiming Christmas and all that, historically, those people might actually be the newcomers. Something to think about. I think the holiday, whatever you believe, today is a great time for communal wrapping around communal symbols and traditions and gift giving and all that. I think it's great, and it doesn't have to be religious specific. And that's about it, really. I've rambled on now for almost 5 minutes, and I don't want these videos to be much longer. If you are any person out there other than myself, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Just have a good time, man. Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.